in pretty hard.
Just explain the mic. I'm calling the regular meeting of the Redondo Beach Historical Commission to order at 7:01 p.m. And can we get a roll call, please?
Of course. Commissioner Warstadt?
Here.
Commissioner Zaremski?
Here.
Commissioner Colin?
Here.
Commissioner Klinger?
Here, and I got the right button this time.
Chairperson Morocco?
Here.
And noting the absence of Commissioners Comiato and Fernandez. And if I can just remind the commission, we'll need to make sure that your microphones are turned on anytime that you do need to speak. So please just make sure that red light is on. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a quorum, and why don't we start with the salute to the flag? And Commissioner Zaremski, if you can lead us, please.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we can remain standing, I do want to have a moment of silence for one of our founders of our commissioner and has done a lot of work in getting the museum set up and all the work. Pat Dreisler died this last week, and so I would like at least a moment of silence in her memory. Okay, if we can be seated. As I do in every meeting, I would like to read the purpose of this commission, which is to investigate, maintain, and catalog all historical information, documents, records, and pictures that would be of general interest to the city and its citizens, to compile records and recording to promote the keeping of written historical record of the city in narrative form, to be an advisory body, and to perform volunteer services at the Redondo Beach Historical Museum. So now we'll move on to the order of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Cullen moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Klinger. Is there any objection to approving the order of the agenda? Okay, hearing none, that the order of the agenda is approved. Moving to, I guess I need to ask if there's any public comment on that before I move on. Is that correct?
No, Chair, you don't need public comment on that item.
Okay. Now moving to the blue folder items. Do we have any blue folder items?
Not this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've moved through section E. Now we're moving to the consent calendar. And the consent calendar includes 5 items. One is an affidavit of posting. The second is the approval of minutes of April 20th, 2022. The third is the museum donation fund report. The fourth is the Albert P. Arizmendez Moment of Redondo Beach History. And the fifth is the authorization to allocate $115 from the Historical Museum's donation account to replace the glass regarding the presidential letters. Is there anybody who wishes to move anything from the consent calendar to the excluded consent calendar? Okay, so there is no, we'll just deal with these together. Are there any public comments on any of the consent calendar items? We have a Zoom feed too, don't we?
Currently, we don't have any public comments.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. I do want to mention that the authorization to allocate the $115 does not include sales tax, so it's worded vaguely enough that if we do approve that, it's gonna be, we will also authorize the payment of sales tax for it. Okay, is there any comments from the commissioners about any of the items on the consent calendar?
Nope.
Okay, then, and we had public comment. So can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar items F1, F2, F3, F4, and F5?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Collin moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Zaremski, second. Is there any objection to approving the consent calendar from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none, the consent calendar is approved. So we've moved now through item F, and now we're on excluded consent calendar items. I don't believe we have any, so we'll move on to the next item, which is public participation in non-agenda item. This section is intended to provide members of the public with an opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. The section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will afford 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. Any public participation in non-consent items from the room? No. Anything on Zoom or anything like that, or email comments?
Chair, we currently don't have any public participation.
Okay, so we are now through item H on the calendar, and we're moving to item I, items continued from previous agendas. I don't believe we have anything trailing on that. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Then we move into items continued from previous agendas, and we start off with the Historical Commission committee reports. And Ms. Order, do you have any report that you want to start us off with?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So this is the standard item that is typically on the commission's agenda each meeting, and this is an opportunity for any of the active committees on the commission to provide an update to the commission on any items that the committee has been working on since the last meeting, any progress updates. It's really just an opportunity to inform the commission on what has been happening since the last meeting. Included in your report is a full listing of all of the active committees. I do just want to briefly mention that included with the report was an attachment for the Edo Parquet preliminary conceptual plan. That is an update for the park dedication for the Edo Family Park Committee. It's a mouthful. And I just want to, I won't provide the description of that. I just want to, for procedural purposes, just let the commission know that this item on here is purely just included as an FYI to the commission of where that committee is heading. This is a kind of a joint group with the Public Art Commission, and the Public Art Commission has its own liaison group that has been working on this collectively with Chair Morocco. And so the item tonight is really just for you all to see the direction they're heading. That item will be formally going back to the Public Art Commission at its next meeting for them to formally consider the conceptual plan. And then at that time, if the Public Art Commission does approve it, it will come before you for a more formal discussion. So just want to make sure procedurally you all are aware that that is included tonight more as just a FYI. And so that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's go through some of these committees to see if we have updates. Oral History Committee, myself and Commissioner Zaremski, do you have anything to report?
No, I do not.
Okay. We're still doing oral histories. Hopefully I'll have time to do a lot more of them soon. There's about 6 or 7 people I would like the opportunity to interview, and so that will be happening. Joint Fundraising Committee, Commissioner Klinger. Anything to report?
Yes, just an oral update, Chair Morocco. So we did have an event at the Wilderness Park with the Parks and Recs commissioners, and also organized, but I'm sorry, I'm like blanking out on the group's name right now. But it was a joint event where I got to meet Native American tribesmen who explained to me the rich history of the Wilderness Park. And started talking about like having a mini wilderness parks map of history that's dedicated to it as part of the joint fundraising committee's plan to get that designated as a California historical landmark. And so it started out as a Tongua watch site. As the point is strategically located, it's you can see all of the necessary nearby hunting grounds, and it's very beautiful, and it can also get very windy, especially the sunsets there. Then just to highlight it as a strategic location, it served as a Nike Raider missile site. So now kids can go on and experience history and actually stand on the Raider pads. And it currently serves as a wilderness park in Redondo Beach, which is a place where we can now go back to camp out. That's now allowed after COVID, thankfully. So it reopened first time under COVID, and it's just where our magical memories are made from us being kids to adults. So we're moving along forward with that, and that's the oral report.
Okay. Do you have any timing with regards to when you're going to present to the council the resolution to have it designated as a state historical landmark?
I believe it will be sometime between this meeting and the next one, but I believe all the necessary motions for that have already been made in our previous meetings.
Okay. Any other questions for Commissioner Klinger? Okay. Museum Fundraising Committee, that's you, Commissioner Klinger?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Traveling Museum Committee?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Path of History, virtual Path of History. So just to give you a quick update, we are in the fabrication part of the next line, which is going to be Vincent Park and the Lamp of Learning. And if it finally gets approved, then it will be installed. We've also got about 2 others that are actually in design and coming out that we should be able to do. And then we have about 3 more that are ready to go. Once we get the first one installed, we're going to use that as a basis of a fundraiser and ultimately see if we can get some more funding to do that. So that's moving forward, and at some point we're going to get some of the stories up on the website, and so that will add to the ability for people to see what these signs are about and to learn more about how to donate and get their own names on the signs of the Path of History. Any questions? Okay. Albert Ares Mendez Moment of History, that was something in the consent calendar for our members of the public who's present. We tried to do a piece of history in every meeting to make, because we're a historical commission. Albert Ares Mendez was our chair of this commission less than 2 years ago, and he was it for a while. So we dedicated a moment of history. So it's an opportunity. If anybody wants to learn about history, they can just look at our minutes and meeting notes and see a little bit about history. This is about the Hotel Redondo. So we have a big display in the museum. So I encourage any members of the public to look at that one as well. Budget Committee, Commissioner Fernandez is in charge of I don't think we have anything to report, but is there any progress made on our budget allocation?
The city council is still considering the budget for next year. So, and I apologize, I don't have it up in front of me. I don't remember quite exactly what was included in the city manager's recommendations towards the museum. So I don't want to misspeak. I can try and find it, and I bring it up during the director's report if I may.
That'd be great, because I was going to say we'll talk about it in the director's report. Technology and Website Committee, that'll end up being part of the director's report. Commissioner Comiato is not here today, but there are some plans being done to improve the technology as well as improve the website. Historical Murals Committee, so there's 3. We have a joint project with the Public Arts and the Parks and Recs to put murals, historical murals in the park. We will see what kind of call to action that the public arts people do with regards to whether they're going to have any historical content in the initial murals that they're putting up. But we've identified 2 parks where it seems appropriate to put in a mural, and we're just queuing that up. Writing competitions and scholarships. That's something that's been on the back burner, but it's something that we can explore more as we progress through this. Community Outreach Committee, that one, we are going to be talking a little bit about it a little bit during the strategic plan part. Commissioner Cullen has some ideas which would actually help make that work. Marketing Committee, just as a way of introduction on that. So I went to the Chicago History Museum, and they have tons of things that people can take from the museum. We got for the open house, we had postcards made of a beautiful picture of the museum, so people when they walk in can have it. But we'll be needing to make an effort to brand a little bit more and coming up with more things that people can take away that actually talk about the museum. And when we get to the director's report, when she talks about the staff person and where we are with that, I think that's where we really can start getting into the marketing of the museum. Museum Improvement Committee. So this is a good place to talk about our open house that happened for the city's birthday. We did have over 70 people who came in attendance just to that event. The art exhibit was spectacular, and I don't know if Commissioner Cullen wants to talk about that at all, about the experience of putting on the art show. And
well, it was fun, and it attracted, that event attracted a lot of students who were taught by Cesar Hernandez, who was the art teacher at Redondo High for decades. And so people came and wanted to see, some of his artwork that we had. And I think we had about 11 or 12 pieces of artwork, and people enjoyed it. It was a nice thing to do. It was nice to hear the stories from people who were his students. Even after the event, I was getting messages through Facebook about how people in Oregon and people in other cities had acquired his paintings because their parents had been students of his at Redondo High. So that was really nice to know that there's a family of art lovers out there who appreciate what he did and what he taught, their parents. So it was a really nice experience, and hopefully we'll do it again and expand the paintings that we have that he painted over the decades that he was at Redondo High.
thank you. And we did manage to locate his own personal yearbook from one of the years that he's on his artwork's on the cover. So it was kind of exciting to find that. And that actually was, I think, the last public event that Pat Dreisler attended. She was gracious enough to show up for a couple of hours to sit and talk and meet people, and it was really appreciated. So it was a successful event. Museum Sales Committee, I'm gonna have to work with staff to design a flyer that tells everybody that they can buy the postcard book at the North, I don't know what the City Community Center down in North on Artesia Boulevard. That you can buy them there now. You can buy them in bookstores, but we have a special thing where the money's going to be contributed into our fund. Museum inventory teams, there really hasn't been any progress since our last meeting, other than we keep on finding more and more clippings. Commissioner Comiato is not here to share with us a report. Museum Signs and Display Committee, again, I just went to the Chicago History Museum and got a lot of different and new ideas for more signage and how to present it in our museum. And we'll talk about that when we get to the strategic plan. Field trips and walking tours of the historical sites. Actually, one of the ideas that Commissioner Cullen came up with, we're going to be talking about during the strategic plan, is implanting in the sidewalk little markers of historically significant sites so that we can actually set up a walking tour. That's going to involve a little bit of work with regards to that, but it should be something. Museum audio tours, I know that's part of our strategic plan, but that's something that we're going to be looking at as well. Grants, there's nothing to report. Now let's talk about the park dedication. If you want to bring up, Ms. Orta, some of the pictures from what the Parks and Recs, the Public Arts have done. So as a way of background, as you know, we as a commission got the city council to agree to change the name of the parkette that's at the corner of Flagler and Ripley and I think Havermeyer. And so the question is, it's named after a family who's lived in the community for many, many years. It's, I think, in the neighborhood of over 100 if you consider that the grandparents lived here too. This park is right about a block away from the family who lived and grew up. What we were going to do with it, and the reason you'll see some of these slides and everything, is there's two stories going on with it. One is with regards to this long time family that lived in the community. But what happened in the 40s is that they were forcibly relocated to the internment camps. And so we thought since it's across the street from Jefferson Elementary School, would be a great learning opportunity to teach the kids as well as the adults in the community a little bit about what happened during World War II and how we treated our residents and what happened during that period of time. This family came back to Redondo afterwards. The daughter of in the family actually ended up graduating from the high school afterwards. But if you can go show the other end of the park as well. So we thought it would be nice, there's symbolism in a lot of the stuff. If you go to the next, this is the center part of the park. They thought the cherry blossoms would be good. There's opportunity to put signage in there. I don't know if you included that in the packet too, some of the signs.
No, we just included the
So there's
photos.
signage for storage, there's benches to be contemplative. Even the fences around there kind of trigger it with regards to that. And there's places for pictures and stories. And what I got from this whole thing is that the use of landscape as an art piece. And so it's kind of an amazing process. So I'm presenting it to you today because it was presented at the public arts meeting. And if you have any thoughts about, after looking at some of this stuff, and if you go to the public arts website and their meeting website and look at what they presented, because there's other things as well, and have any feedback, as Ms. Orta indicated, they are going to be presenting it at their meeting as well to take it to the next step. Any questions? Okay. So any public comment? Anything on the web or anything like that?
We currently don't have any Zoom participants, no e-comments.
Okay, that's adding to the pressure for you to actually make a public comment at some point. Can I get a motion to receive and file these committee reports?
So moved. And I just want to say that it's a beautiful rendering of the park.
Thank you. And I will give credit to where credit is due. On the Public Arts Commission is actually the president of the Historical Society. So we have a group, we have two people from Public Arts and I'm the liaison to help out with them and come and give some feedback and stuff. We actually had the family show up at the last Public Arts meeting. So can I get a motion to receive and file these reports?
So
You
moved.
moved already, that's right. Okay, any second? Commissioner Zaremski, I see you're making a motion to second. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. It sticks sometimes. Any objection to receiving and filing these reports? Hearing none, those are now received and filed.
Chair Morocco, if I can just make a quick point. Earlier, I blanked out on the name of the organization that organized the first camping event. It was the South Bay Parkland Conservancy. So like Chair Morocco, just want to give credit where credit is due. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to our next item. And that is the discussion and development of a 3-year strategic plan. Okay, so as you know, we're not meeting that frequently, and the last meeting we had on the agenda, just getting the concept approved and discussed. And I don't know where everybody is with regards to their domain, but it was clear that by the end of the meeting that there was not enough sufficient direction given to people, and there was some concern. So on the second page of the administrative report, I came up with some concepts which I'm hoping will at least give some more clarification. I threw out some ideas. Some of them are mine, some of them are other commissioners. What I'm hoping today is that you get an opportunity to see what's involved in developing this 3-year strategic plan. See an example that Commissioner Comiato did, and see if there's any ideas that you think may help people in the, like, for example, Commissioner Cullen suggested having a Halloween event for, to bring in more children, and that falls under Commissioner Zaremski. So events, speakers, and special exhibits. So it's one of those things where you can, since we can't violate the Brown Act of actually going in all meeting outside of this meeting to discuss it, it's like an opportunity to come up with and see if there's any more ideas. And at some point, we're going to have to actually start drafting the strategic plan, but hopefully we'll be meeting more frequently and we can at least get some guidance. So one of the things that I wanted to be clear is our 3-year plan's got a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term project. And I've defined short-term basically 2022 calendar year, mid-term 2023, and long-term is 2024 and beyond. And this all pertains to our historical museum and trying to make it the best that it can be. And one of the things, when I did go to Chicago and saw their museum, I realized that our museum is so small and so under budgeted when it comes to stuff, but we are actually the oldest South Bay city, and we have so many things that we can promote with regards to our museum and our history, and that's kind of what I think the goal of this committee is to bring that history forward, get people talking about the history, and being excited about the Redondo Beach history. So those are the short to midterm, and long term is what we needed in the direction. The division of responsibility came from last meeting. Ideas. So you can see there's a list of 15 ideas that have been thrown down there. Commissioner Cullen, do you want to talk about the Halloween or Christmas picture event?
Well, I was thinking on the day that we had the art exhibit at the museum, early in the morning when we were setting up, people were coming by even before the museum was open, bringing their kids. One kid was there to do a report on Burrell Elementary School. He lives in District 2. And so his mother brought him to the museum to see if they could find anything on his school. And so he was there early, and we ended up sending him a photograph of the original Burrell Heights school that was there just across the street from where he lives. And then later in the day, we had other kids who were showing up with their parents. And I thought, this is a good opportunity. If we can get kids attracted to the museum, they're going to bring their parents. And the more kids, the more parents, the more interest we're going to have in that museum. And I was thinking that we could think about having yearly events at the museum so that people will want to come and celebrate what we have. And I was thinking, if we targeted certain holidays, for example, if we did a Halloween event where maybe the front of the museum was dressed up like a haunted house, and you advertise that, well, kids are going to want to come to the museum with their parents. If we did something at Christmas time, maybe had a Santa sitting on the porch of the museum, you're going to attract kids wanting their picture with Santa, or they could bring their dog and have their picture taken. You do certain events, not a lot of them, but enough where, and if we do it on a yearly basis, people are going to want to come to the museum for those kinds of events. And that was my idea. Get kids, their parents are going to come, and maybe they're going to all start talking in school about going to see Santa or going to the haunted house at the museum. Just get them there to the park and drum up interest in what's inside the front door to that museum. I think that's one way of doing it. And they're cheap to do. I mean, what's it cost to, rent a Santa costume and have one of us sitting there as Santa, right? Or have people dress up for Halloween, and maybe you pass out some candy as these kids come in. It doesn't have to compete with the actual Halloween day. If Halloween, falls like during the week, maybe you do a Halloween event on a Saturday, during the daytime. Just get kids coming and get their parents there. And we can think about other parts of the year where there are holidays just to get them. I remember when I was a kid, they used to have an Easter egg hunt at Dominguez Park and at Perry Park. And that attracts a lot of people. And if we want to get people interested in the museum and get them inside so that they can see the history of Redondo, you plan events like that are cheap, we're going to get a lot of people. And if you do it over and over and over every year, people are going to know, hey, we have a museum at Dominguez Park now. And maybe we anticipate, a Halloween event or a Christmas event or an Easter event or, some other, maybe a 4th of July type celebration at the museum. Those are my ideas.
I think, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Clear.
Thank you. I think it's a great idea to have a yearly or even a quarterly museum event, like 4th of July, maybe something from spring, like the celebration of Spring Day. Winter is probably going to be Christmas, and I can already see Chair Morocco being a Santa. He's already got the Santa hair going. And Halloween's a great idea, especially if we do it on the Saturday before during the day, because the action is mostly like a Saturday night for those events. And the other thing that I want to reach out to our community, if you're watching this, because right now there's a butterfly garden at Wilderness Park, and that was actually started by one of the students who had an idea. He presented it to the city council. The city council put him in touch with the Parks and Rec Commission. And now we have a butterfly garden, and that student has a very impressive item on his college admissions letter. So if you are a student and are watching this or listening to this, and you have an idea, we're very easy to reach out to. Please do. And that's kind of where I was going with that.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so I'll start this brainstorming session going. So one of the things, as you may recall, we have these stained glass windows in the museum from the St. James Church. And I thought it'd be nice to start collecting wedding photos of people who were married with those glass in the background. So we already have one, and if anybody in the public has got married at St. James and would like to share a picture of their wedding with the windows in the background, I think it adds a little bit more context to the story of how we acquired those windows. I also know from the oral histories that everybody seems to have a story about their old cars and would love to be able to start collecting and maybe even putting into either a notebook or a book, ultimately, pictures of some of the people with their own car, their old cars with their owners, and the stories about the cars. Because some of these old cars date back well before I was born, probably before my parents were born. And so it would be nice to get to collect their stories, and it doesn't have to be anything long and fancy, but I think it's a nice place for people to come in and actually come in with their cars and share their stories. We mentioned, or Stephen, Commissioner Cullen and I talked about having plaques embedded in the sidewalks of famous people. So Charles Lindbergh had a place that he was living here where you could put a plaque on the sidewalk. Cesar Hernandez, when he lived here, it's a beautiful house now, but his location is there, and it's something that we'd have to work obviously with Public Works and figure out. But I think you mentioned, Commissioner Darmsky, that your brother-in-law is a clamper or something like that. So that would be something that they would have some feedback. And I noticed that when I was in Cleveland, they actually have little things on the sidewalk for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that has people, it's like a walk of fame over there. And we could probably do something similar to just kind of, we can create a map where people can wander around the city learning about the history, and it kind of is an opportunity there. One of the things that came out at one of the commission meetings by one of the commissioners who I won't name, wanted to know if we actually had a historical museum. And then the afterthought was, oh, we have the Morrell House. So we have an identity issue, because I have a feeling that people only identify the historical museum as the Morrell House. So it brings up a funding opportunity that maybe we want to think about, and we obviously need major staff buy-in and the city manager buy-in on what if we name the museum something, and we can set the pricing on it, the city can set the pricing, and that would be a source of upgrading the museum as far as naming it and the room. So when somebody says, oh, the Redondo Beach Historical Museum, they won't necessarily axiomatically say the Morrell House, they'll say, whatever, the Klinger Museum of History in Redondo Beach or something like that. So that's something that's obviously long-term, but it's something that is a funding source. So the fundraising committee and the budget committee can play with that. Talking about regular programs, so do we confirm the speaker for the baseball program?
Well, he's willing to do it, so give me a date and we'll get him there.
So we were thinking about having another open house at the museum, but this one's devoted to baseball in Redondo. We have a rich history of baseball in this community. We have available, and we're talking about one of the speakers who used to work at the Daily Breeze in the sports department and knows everything there is to know about baseball in Redondo. We have some former major league athletes that are still generally in the area we can bring in. So we were trying to figure out a date to do it. We were thinking in July. I don't think there's going to be an expense on this one. We figured out how to fund those things, but we need to come up with a date, and how much timing would we need to get the planning done for advance notice out there on the website and on the social media.
And perhaps coordinate with Little League, since you have that audience there at Dominguez Park and at Perry Park and further north and further south. Just advertise it and let these kids all know, hey, we've got this guy, Henry Burke, who's been around forever, and he knows everything about Little League in Redondo. Maybe you're interested in coming to hear what he has to say about,
So for staff benefit, we were thinking about mid to late July, if that's too early to do, or?
I think it depends on what exactly you want your full marketing plan to be. If it's as simple as putting a flyer together and adding it to social media and the city website, that can be done, relatively quickly, within a matter of a few days.
Okay.
So I think it just kind of depends on how far you want to work backwards on that and how much you want to add into that plan.
Well, we just need to secure the date with the speaker, and we can do it inside and outside if we need to. There's that shaded area on the outside.
Okay.
On number 10, docent training, I think Commissioner Zaremski brought up the concept of maybe we should do something for the high school students. So Chicago History Museum had an internship program, so I'm exploring what they're doing with the internships, and maybe we can tie that into a midterm project of some sort. A word program for third graders on history projects. So each of the third graders are supposed to do a history project. I think that involves the schools as well as permission from the parents to involve them, but it may be something that we can set up some sort of scholarship for kids who the teachers nominate, and then we can have their items displayed at the museum, which is going back to Commissioner Cullen's thought about getting people in there. One of the concepts that I would like to explore, and this is going to be more of a long-term thing, is if we can move one of our display cases to the middle of the first room, we'll get more wall space and we can put more stuff up on the wall with signage. So I'm going to be exploring that with staff as well as the rest of the volunteers. And obviously that's going to depend on our budget. I seem to recall a number that may actually provide us for it, but it may be something that if we can find to do that. So these are some ideas that I'm hoping will, for whoever is responsible for the areas, might entice them to think about whether they want to do this short-term, midterm, long-term, if they have their own ideas on it. As I said, because we have the Brown Act limitations, I'm willing, each of these are separate, compartmentalized items, but if you want help developing each of you your plans, I'm happy to make myself available to at least get this ball rolling so that when we come to the next meeting, we can all have something in writing of some sort that at least, tells us where we're starting on this process. Any questions, input, comments, thoughts? Commissioner Klinger?
Yes. So I think the baseball is a great idea, especially since I live next to Perry Park, where Little League games can often be heard, and it's always fun to hear kids cheering and the parents cheering on their kids, the kids cheering on their teammates, and it just kind of gives it a nice, lively atmosphere. So something like maybe even have a baseball theme for a month at the Historical Museum and kind of design it around that for that month. And maybe start with not 1 month, but 3 months, so we don't have to change it up too often. But baseball is huge in Redondo. It's a very fun sport for the kids to play, and it's part of our history, so it's always fun to see history come alive in the modern time. So I think that's a great idea, and my only addenda to that would be to suggest that we maybe add a baseball theme to it in the museum.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts, ideas?
When are we going to meet next?
That's coming up on the thing. I think we're supposed to be off of this every other month thing at the end of this month.
Okay.
So technically we should be meeting in July, but I'm waiting for the director's report to clarify that for it. So we'll get clarification very shortly.
Okay. Maybe between now and the next meeting, we can have like a workup done, like a flyer for like baseball day, Little League day at the museum, Halloween, at the museum, meet Santa at the museum, maybe Easter egg hunt at the museum, get people to start talking. And if we did something with Santa, the Historical Society, I don't know if they still do it or not, in the Morel House, they used to have an event there with, people singing and whatnot, and we could coordinate, maybe not compete with the same type of event, but, they have people, Christmas carolers in there, and maybe that's a fundraiser, event for them. But I mean, if we have Santa over at the museum and they're doing their own thing, you're going to have people coming to both houses, that day. And that happened on the 29th or the 30th with the art exhibit, we had people going through the Morale House who were then coming over to the museum and looking at the artwork. And it worked out well. It worked out for them and for us to have an interest in what was happening in both places.
Okay, I think that's a great idea. I'm going to charge you with coming up with the initial mock-up.
Okay.
What I will tell you from my experience is you can do something very rough, and then the city staff gets their hands on it and they make it 10 times better with much better visuals and much better text. So if you can at least give them something to work with, I think you'll find a very good result.
Okay. I have someone in mind who does this kind of stuff, and maybe if I ask nicely for free, they'll do a flyer for each of the events. I mean, and we have the dog park just on the other side of the museum. No reason to exclude, that group of people. Maybe you do a little dog event where they take their dog to the park and then they come over to the museum. Maybe not take them inside, but you get them outside, and you never know. Maybe they're going to hand the leash to, somebody else, and they're going to come in and see what we, have in there.
Okay, so we're putting you down to do the mock-ups.
The mock-ups, all right.
And coordinate with Ms. Orta to at least make sure that the staff is kept abreast of what's going on.
Okay.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Thoughts? Gotta hold it down.
So,
Maybe Commissioner, there we go. It's on and now it's on. Yeah, it's on. Don't touch
I was just going to
it.
comment that out in Majestic Canyon,
Once.
I think it's
There it is.
in Majestic Canyon, they have a historical house and a garden, and they have an annual Easter egg hunt that is a big draw. So when you're talking about that, it reminds me of the egg hunt out there. It's a very popular event. And I think kind of similar feel to what we have going on in, fairly small area.
Okay. Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, this is public comment. I'm hoping that you have some thoughts that if you've been to the museum, that you would like to share with us on how we can make it a much better experience for people.
I've only been there once.
Well, come on up and introduce yourself and.
Sure. And I guess it's only been open like off and on recently, right?
Yes.
You want me to come up and?
Yeah, why not? The microphone's on. And we, as I said, we're honored to have you with us here and.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Art Middlebrooks. I live just a few blocks from here on Francisca. And my wife and I are new to the area about 6 years ago. So relative, and we have a 1907 home. So have a lot of interest in the history of the city, and used to live in Chicago, had a 1880-something home in Chicago. So just have a real love of history and historical architecture and the like. So so I was just here more out of curiosity. We are considering whether our home might qualify for the Mills Act, for example. But in terms of the museum, I guess I would not prescribe, because I don't know much about what the commission has done in the past and what you're looking at. I guess my main recommendation would be to just, and you guys probably have this already, would be to have clear goals of what you're trying to accomplish. And I teach business school, so MBA program. So that we always start with like mission and goals, and then as you guys are probably all over it, and I am not as familiar with what the plans are. But I mean, are the main goals to actually get greater attendance at the museum itself? Is that kind of one of the primary goals of the commission?
No, it's to get, we like attendance. We want it to be a meaningful experience for people who come in there. We want it to be something that the city can be, it's already proud of its museums and history, but it's something that to get people talking If you look at our past agenda, and I think it's February 2021, there were some conceptual plans on how to change it, but it's just we've divided it up. And the problem we have is the Brown Act, which kind of limits our ability to sit down and do the traditional vision and mission planning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And plus, we're also limited to what our budget is and what the city council allows us to do. But just so you know, we divided it up into spheres of influence. We have the physical plant, what are we going to do with it, the technology. Commissioner Warstat's going to be the curator and coming up with the concepts of what the collections are about. Commissioner Cullen's on the acquisitions and artifacts, and including photography and art. Commissioner Zaremski's doing events, speakers, and special exhibits. We have a budget guru that's going to help with the book sales and youth programming. Commissioner Klinger is doing fundraising, and I'm doing marketing staffing and our research room. So it's an extended out process. We just got this thing started at the last meeting, which was 2 months ago, and we weren't actually able to talk about it as a group until tonight. And so it's going to be a drawn out process, but it's hopefully by the end of 2022, we will actually have a plan so that when we do budgets next year, the staff knows what our goals are and what's important and where we envision ourselves. So that's why we're spending the time we're doing now here. And with your 1907 home, if you know who the owner is, it may actually fit into what we're talking about, putting a little plaque out there so people know, who the original builder was, or, oh, that was the other thing, architectural styles. So we have certain ones in Redondo, and Chicago is really big on architects. So it's what would be nice to even have an architect exhibit of the different types of homes that we have in the community.
Yeah, no, I'm here mostly to listen, and I think it's really neat that you're drawing inspiration from other communities that you've visited or other historical museums that you visited. And so, I'm just trying to get more familiar and to learn. I'm just very curious, so I would be loath, I wouldn't want to prescribe what to do without knowing more about the commission and where you guys are going. But I thought it was really interesting that you're drawing in kind of outside inspiration from other things that you've experienced that you thought worked really well. So,
thank you.
Congratulations.
And if you are really interested in learning more about the history, there is a post office book that's available at the North Branch Community City Office. I don't even know how much they're charging for it, but you would be the first sale. So
Great. Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Allowing me to join.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, is there any other public comments on the web or anything like that?
Currently don't have any public comments on the web.
Okay. So if I can get a motion to receive and file this strategic plan starting point.
So moved.
Commissioner Klinger moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Collins, second. Any opposition to adopting this strategic plan? Starting point? Okay, hearing none, then this item is received and filed. And I'd encourage each of the commissioners, if you do have questions or thoughts about it, to reach out to me or the staff, and we can at least get you on the track of what we can present at the next meeting. Okay, so now we are on the director's report. And so, Ms. Orta, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll start going back and responding to the budget question that was brought up earlier in the meeting. So staff did request, and the city manager is recommending, that the city council allocate a total of $10,000 annually, well, this upcoming fiscal year, which runs July 1st through June 30th. So this $10,000 can be used as the commission sees fit. It can be used solely on museum, anything that helps enhance the museum, special exhibits, any events, anything that the commission feels would have a benefit to the facility. It can also be used for the Path of History project. So if the commission wants to do a set of 2 to 3 markers 1 year and not spend as much in the facility, and then the following year would like, if that money continues the following year, if that the commission would then like to kind of flip it and do more on the facility side and maybe not as heavy on the Path of History, the commission can do so. And so we're hopeful that this will provide a level of flexibility for the commission, also a level of creativity that the commission hasn't had in the past, and the fact that the funding that the commission has kind of overseen and been able to allocate towards different projects has been minimal and dependent really on donations to the facility. So as I stated, the city manager is recommending this total in this upcoming fiscal year budget. So the city council, we are hopeful, will be voting on the final budget at its meeting next week. So we should know more by our next meeting whether that money was formally allocated for next year.
Does that include the 1,800 for the computers, or is that separate?
So it was a separate request, but not part of the recommendation to City Council. So what Chair Morocco is mentioning is we did a supplemental request that would allow the city to purchase a computer and printer specific for the museum facility, so that when the staff is there, they have access to that equipment. That recommendation was not included as part of the city manager's budget for next year. But if the commission would like to, can use part of the $10,000 funding, if approved, can use that to allocate towards the printer and computer if it would like to. So there's some flexibility there on that end. And moving on, just a few really quick items on staffing at the facility. I'm happy to report that I do believe we may have found someone to staff the facility. Still working through the kind of the final details, and then hopefully get them through the pre-employment screening process very soon. She's very excited, has a great history and background in museum at different facilities, mostly in LA. So we are happy to have her hopefully on the team. I'm hopeful that by our next meeting, we will actually have her hired, and we can start getting her some hours in the facility. So not quite to the finish line, but we're very, very close. So happy to report that. And then the final item is the discussion of the meeting frequency for the commission. So I don't know exactly when the city council made this action, but the city council did update its ordinance for all of the commissions, for select commissions to meet bi-monthly. And that timeline sunsets at the end of this month, which means that unless the city council extends that ordinance, the commissions that were selected to meet bi-monthly will begin meeting monthly starting in July, so starting next month. As of right now, the city council has not made any action that would extend that ordinance. And so as of July 1st, and as of today, the Historical Commission would begin meeting monthly unless there's another action by the council. So I do just want to preface that there is a lot of staff resources that it takes to not only prepare the meetings, but then also to be in the meetings. We, as staff, certainly work with the chair to draft the agenda and make sure that there are discussion items and items where the commission does need to take action on the agenda. From time to time, if we do feel that there is no actionable items, or we just simply don't have the staff resources, just want to give the commission a heads up that we may go down the path of canceling meetings here and there, but we will certainly try to maintain a consistent schedule for the commission as much as possible. So our team is tasked with overseeing 4 total commissions, and so it certainly does get a little bit of a pull sometimes to try and balance all of that. So, but we certainly will do what we can to make that happen. And that concludes all of my reports. I'm happy to answer any questions if there is any.
Commissioner Flannery?
Yeah, do you know if there's anything on the agenda about potentially extending the ordinance or not?
I have not seen anything. I haven't seen the tentative agenda for next week's meeting. So there may be something there, but I haven't even heard it being discussed even internally. So I have not heard that that is the intent of the council.
Okay, but then the 10,000 on the agenda, the staff recommendation, that is going to be on the next Tuesday's meeting?
It is. It is part of the budget consideration.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the commissioner?
Well, I had this idea for this Halloween event.
Mr. Collins?
And maybe Kelly, you could get everybody's size, because I'm thinking this might be the perfect group for a Wizard of Oz type thing happening on Halloween. And, you know, we have enough people. We just decide who's going to get what costume. So you could just get everybody's sizes, you know, we'll be ahead of the game.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, any other, you, Commissioner Worth? Oh, thank you for coming. Commissioner Worth, are you raising your hand for a question?
Say good night.
Commissioner Zemsky? Okay, I got some questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this position that's being filled, how many hours is that going to be per week?
We estimated about 12 hours per week. Our main goal is really to get the museum open on a consistent basis. We're not too sure what that looks like. Hopefully a combination of maybe one midweek, one day where we had some midweek hours, and then certainly some weekend hours. So we'll need to have flexibility with the applicant, make sure that it can fit in their schedule, but that's kind of our goal is collectively the applicant would work for 12 hours. And those hours may also include just time for them to be in the facility if it's preparing certain exhibits or preparing for events. So that doesn't necessarily mean the facility will be open 12 hours, or it could mean that it is open for 12 hours. So we're just kind of looking at it in that kind of a lens, and we'll have more information on that once we get whoever that person is on board.
And that person understands that we're going to probably supplement with a volunteer that's going to be, okay.
Yes.
And then the next question is, where are we with regards to the repair list that we gave previously?
My understanding is that if not all of the items, almost all of them have been completed in the museum. I don't know if you, Michelle, have heard anything, recently from Public Works?
There's a few minor items that have not been addressed yet, but the person managing the project has been out of town. So he will be returning to the office next week, so I can check in with him then.
Okay. And then since we approved the presidential sign, is that kind of for the next meeting, we would assume that would be far enough along to get swapped out?
Yeah, so we'll take it from here at this point, so we can certainly coordinate getting that replaced so that we can have it displayed again in the museum.
Okay, and then July 20th is, at least according to my calendar, would be the next meeting, the third Wednesday of the month.
So yeah, Chair, I'm actually glad you asked, because I just want to specify on the agenda, we didn't catch it until after it was published, that it says that it's being adjourned to the meeting in August, just because that's traditionally every 2 months. So for this procedurally, if you can still adjourn to the August meeting, and then when we're able to finalize our July calendar, it'll either be a special meeting in July because we adjourn to another meeting, or we'll figure out how we need to coordinate that. But I just want to specify, if you can still adjourn to August, because that's what was posted and noted on the agenda, doesn't mean that we're going to automatically skip July, just for procedural purposes.
Or I could actually ask for a motion that basically calls for a special meeting in July that would convert into a regular meeting if it's appropriate. If not, then it disappears. One way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can. We can also administratively call the special meeting, so it doesn't necessarily need a motion. So we can do that on our end as well.
Okay. And then I don't know how this fits into this, but I think there was a mention of Dominguez Park getting renovated with the walking path and everything like that? Is that still in the works, and does that have an opportunity for input?
So the Public Works Department, as well as our team, are working on kind of a joint effort for updates to the Dominguez Park. Our department is working on the playground piece of it, and then Public Works is doing all of the other components, which includes some of the field area, the walking areas. I think there's some components near the dog park. I don't have the specific details on that. I do know that they are working on putting that timeline together of what that will look like, including the public outreach. So certainly you as commissioners are welcome to attend those public outreach meetings. I don't know that we have it slated to be an item for the commission, for the Historic Commission, but definitely you can participate in the other meetings. And we can get that calendar to
One of the
you.
ideas I think would be nice is to do a history timeline along the walking paths with different years and different events. Not fancy signs, it's just, kind of simple signs that says, 1910, this happened, or 1920, so people can walk around, and it's kind of like a place where they can learn the history, and it leads right to the museum. So when you get to that point, I'd love to be able to provide that input. Okay. Any public comments?
No public comments at this time, Chair.
Okay, so I think that concludes our director's report, and then we move into member items and referrals to staff. So I am going to start down with Commissioner Collin and then circle back to, actually, I'll start from Commissioner Zaremski since you're this way and work my way to Commissioner Collin. Do you have any referrals to staff? Okay. Commissioner Warstadt?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Klinger?
Yep. First, I want to say thank you for handling the letters with Chair Morocco's assistance and for getting that done. We really appreciate that. Earlier in the meeting, I've stated that if students have any ideas, they should reach out to us. What would be the best way for them to do so?
They can reach out to me. My email address is Kelly, KELLY, .orta, ORTA, @redondo.org. That's probably the best way to reach out to me, and then I can connect them with the commission as soon as we are able to do that.
Okay, so if you have ideas, and I'm sure some of you do, reach out to that email, KELLY.ORTA@redondo.org.
Yes, that's correct.
And then make sure you put something like idea for Redondo Beach Historical Commission in the subject line, and that way our liaison order will get that over to us. And whether it be at the museum, Wilderness Park, Fundraising Commission, we accept all historical ideas about Redondo. And thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Collin?
I was thinking that there's probably one more pad out at Dominguez Park that's available for another historical home placement. And maybe staff could keep an eye out with all the development going on in the city. If there are any of these old historical homes that are going to be demolished, maybe we might want to consider, asking or having the owners donate the house to the city, and we could place it in Dominguez Park on that third available pad so that we have like a heritage square, like the one up off of the Pasadena Freeway on where they moved the Bunker Hill houses. And so if maybe staff could just keep it, keep eyes and ears open to see if there's anything available that's scheduled to be knocked down, maybe if it's worth saving and preserving it. We think about adding to the Dominguez Park historical square there. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Believe it or not, I don't have that many things today, and I thought I had a list, but I don't. The general question I have for staff, are there limitations on me, for example, asking my fellow commissioners if they wanted to donate or sponsor one of the path of history markers as a commission from their individual perspective. And then it brings to the question about, since you mentioned money that the council's putting together, but is there a problem asking the city council if they individually want to have their names on the path of history marker, kind of like the one that they have out there on the outside, which was a city council from, I don't know, about 10, 15 years ago.
So my initial reaction to your first question of having the commissioners donate is that shouldn't be a problem, but I would like to verify that with our city attorney's office. I don't want to lead you guys down the wrong path on that. And then secondly, to city council being on the path of history markers, I can certainly reach out and see if that's something that they would be interested in, or kind of where we want to go with that. I can reach out to city manager's office.
Okay. And then also, and this is another question you can check into, are there any plans to refurbish that fountain that's in the middle of the Heritage Court?
So our public works team has been looking into that. That was actually a request of the Morel House when we did a walkthrough with them about 2 to 3 months ago. And last I had heard, which was maybe a month ago, our public works team had located the fountain and is looking to see what kind of repairs or upgrades it needs, as well as beyond the fountain itself, but also the hookups on the site. And so they're definitely looking into it. But I thank you for the reminder. I will reach out to them and see how the progress on that.
Okay. And then it would be nice to recognize individuals in the community for their historic, basically makers of Redondo history kind of thing. Is that something we would need to agendize each meeting, or are we able to do presentations where we would at that, have a committee that basically says, okay, we want to recognize, so-and-so as a Redondo history maker at a meeting? Get more public people here.
I would almost recommend doing it similar to what you do on the consent calendar for the, what is it called? The Albert Ares Mendez.
A minute, yeah.
So it's kind of a standing item on the meeting. At that point, certainly that item can be pulled, and maybe it can just be a standard discussion item so we don't have to pull it. But I would look into maybe doing something more formal that way. That way it's formally agendized. We make sure it's discussed, and the family or whoever the individual are certainly
Okay.
presented.
And then the last thing I have is I do want to, if you can convey the thanks to the person who's doing these minutes. They're doing a fantastic job with it. And so at least I'm appreciative of it. I assume that the other commissioners are, so they haven't raised any objections to any of the minutes since this person started. So if you can just thank them for doing the wonderful job that they're doing.
I certainly will. She'll be excited to hear that. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think we need public comment on this, or do we? Well, we don't have anybody, right?
No, we don't.
Okay, we have no public comments on that. So that brings us up to adjournment. And you're recommending, Ms. Orta, what? That we just read what it says there, and if you'll make the changes to it?
Yes. So if you can adjourn to the August.
Okay, so I'm going to read parts of this. The next meeting, Redondo Beach Historic Commission, will be a regular meeting held at 7 p.m. on August 17th, 2022, unless changed by city ordinance, and Redondo Beach City Council Chambers at 415 Diamond Street, Redondo Beach. It is the intention of the city of Redondo Beach to comply with the Americans with Disability Acts in all respects. If an attendee or participant at this meeting, you will need special assistance beyond what is normally provided, the city will attempt to accommodate you in every reasonable manner. Please contact the city clerk's office at 310-318-0656 at least 48 hours prior to the meeting to inform us of your particular needs and to determine if accommodation is feasible. Please advise us at that time if you will need accommodation to attend or participate in the meetings on a regular basis. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? I'm going to look at.
Second.
I'm seeing the finger going over there. Did you want the second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to give this to Commissioner Zaremski. She was trying really hard and she got her mic on finally. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Why don't we have a roll call on this one? We haven't had any today.
Sure, sorry, I just turned my microphone off. Commissioner Warstad? Commissioner Zaremski?
Yes.
Commissioner Colin?
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger?
Aye.
And Chair Morocco.
Aye. So we stand adjourned. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us, whoever's watching out there. And I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.